Welcome to the Overcommitted Podcast, your weekly dose of real engineering conversations. I'm your host, Bethany, and I'm joined by...
Hey, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Erica.
We met while working on a team at GitHub and quickly realized we were all obsessed with getting better at what we do. So we started this podcast to share what we've learned. Everything from leveling up your technical skills to navigating professional development, all with the goal of building a community where engineers can learn and connect. Today it's just the three of us, and we're tackling something that's been quietly rearranging how all of us work. What it actually means to stay sharp as an engineer now that AI writes a huge chunk of the code. The pitch we keep hearing is that these tools make us faster. But faster at what? And what happens to the skills underneath when the machine is doing the typing? That's the conversation. So to kick us off, as we always kick off, what is something that you all are building or obsessed with right now?
I can go first, I guess. We both unmute at the same time. Mostly just in the last couple days, I'm actually trying my hand at design, which is different for me. I'm actually figuring out how to use Figma and getting ready. I actually need it for my new job. And it's actually been really delightful and I'm really enjoying it more than I thought I would. I thought that I've always just put Figma in my head as this is a thing I'm never going to learn how to use. I'm just not going to be able to do it. Now I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this. This feels good. It's nice. What about you, Erica?
Yeah, that's cool. I like the idea of conquering something that you feel like you haven't you wouldn't be able to. That's always really satisfying. Yeah. Don't have anything coming to mind right now. I guess I am. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank here on anything technical. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I'm still kind of ruminating on some of the podcasts that I've listened to this week. And the one I was listening to this morning was talking about what to do when somebody doesn't process your Venmo request. They were I've had a Venmo request open for 10 years and it was a group dinner and 18 people paid and then the 19th person didn't pay, and now it's 10 years later. What do you do? And also what does that mean about payment apps in general? But they were also talking about well, this has always been a problem, even back when there was cash, there'd be that one person who shows up and is I'll pay you back later, and then they never do. But now it's on your screen and you see it every day. So I don't know, that's been just kind of bouncing around in my head. Not really particularly technical, but I like those sort of philosophical tech things.
I mean, it could be technical if Venmo has a feature to poke that person to pay. Be like,
Yeah,
hey,
I know. I feel
settle
that's what I
up.
would do. Even 10 years later, I'd be give me my money.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. And I think we contain multitudes. We can have other interests other than tech. I think these past few months I've been really struggling to dive deep into super technical things because I've just felt overwhelmed, maybe a little burnout, but just really I don't have the capacity to engage with much technical discussions or things. So lately a lot of what I've been doing is watching hockey and learning more about how hockey works. I'm excited about the World Cup that's happening. Hanging out with friends and trying to get back into running and stuff. So that's been really good. But I feel like I'm now in a spot where I can start engaging again with more technical things. So I have this stack of books that I'm looking at right now next to my desk. They're all kind of mathy books. There's a Pre-Calculus Made Difficult and The Dark Art of Linear Algebra and some fun things like that I really want to dive into and start learning more or relearning a lot of those things, because I always really love when I can relate things to math. So looking forward to that. Yeah. And then also just trying to figure out what on earth do we do while our agents are coding for us, honestly.
How to fill that time.
Yeah. Some people say it's just prompting another agent, kind of round robining between all those agents. Some people are checking their Slack messages. I think that was another comment I saw when I asked my team what they do. But I'm curious, what do you all do when you're waiting for your agents to wrap up?
I
That's a good.
mean, it depends on kind of what I'm working on. There are times when I'll like watch it run because I want to know how it's thinking about something. But if it's sort of like more procedural, it's usually like lower context threshold for me. So I'll, yeah, like do something else. Like I'll do an administrative task or I'll kick off something else. Yeah. But I can't have too many things running at once. At least like too many different like problem areas. Like I feel like if I'm working on like two problem areas at once, that's probably about how much I can manage in my head at once. Yeah, but I'll sometimes just like ping pong back between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that a lot where I'll go between usually three at once. I feel like I maybe it's just like the size of task I give it, but I feel like usually I can have three going at once and go in between each one and then come back like right as the other one ends. But that's actually why I've been really enjoying, I think, this design task that I'm working on right now, is because it's something that I can work on and really focus on and like think about while my agent is writing the code that I'm responsible for right now. I think also writing, that's also when I do like blog post writing or something like that, then it's usually I like to have some sort of like creative thing ongoing while I have agents doing the technical work for me. And I think that that is a nice balance. I feel pretty satisfied at the end of the day when I get to have done something creative as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of us felt like code was creative, like that creative outlet for us for so long that now it almost is like we need to look to for other things. So I really love that. I feel like you've always kind of considered other creative outlets and stuff like throughout the time of knowing you. So that's really cool that you've been applying that to like filling the time while the agents are doing work. Erica, I feel like it's kind of similar for me in terms of I'm probably just looking at Slack or responding to XYZ message or doing something that I otherwise need to be doing to fill that time. Or checking another agent's work. So, but I've loved the idea of trying to fill it with something that makes me better in some way, or like like I learn or grow a little more, because I mean it's always been hard to find L&D time during the day, and it's like, well, there's some space here, so maybe there.
Yeah, that's true. I had like an OAuth course running yesterday when I was working on something, just to get some like foundational knowledge in something. Yeah, and that was a good use of my time. I was like, oh, I need to do this more more often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. We almost need like like TikTok for learning courses or like educational courses to fit in the times where our agents are doing stuff. I know we've been told that AI makes us faster, and I know that there's been several studies saying like, oh, it does make you faster, or oh, it makes you slower, or some companies it makes you faster and others it makes you slower. But I'm curious, personally, do you all feel like you're going faster than you did like a year ago or 2 years ago?
I will say, like, I am working on a greenfield thing right now, and I do think that has gone considerably faster than like it would have without AI assistance. Like it's in a problem area that like I am not super familiar with. Like I don't work with this code all that often. It's touching a lot of things that like I don't know about, like what the context is. So for that, like, I could get more done in a day than I could probably in a week before, and that feels like a big improvement. There are some things that I'm like honestly, even like this week, I'm like, wow, this would have been faster if I went into wherever and edited it myself. And like the 5 iterations it took me to get to that point, like could have been accomplished by a single commit or a single like bullet point list. And like I'm doing it now because like this is my new muscle memory. But like yeah, like I think, and because it can run in the background, I think it turns into this like asynchronous thing where you don't realize how much time adds up over those like 2 to 3 minute intervals. You know what I mean? So I haven't tested for myself necessarily what the time difference is for those like active sort of like active tasks, but I think it'd be an interesting experiment to like test it out. And I don't know, like I guess like how do you compare? It's like doing the same task with AI and without AI and see what's faster. Like comparable tasks, I guess. Like yeah, it's just really hard to measure, and you're like, why would I spend the time to do this twice to compare if I can do it once and get it done? But I think maybe like I'll probably moving forward like selectively pick some things to not send to AI and just do myself.
I feel like my skill set has changed so much since I started using AI that it would not be a fair comparison of like pre AI era coding as well, where like I think it would take me a lot longer to be like, oh yeah, that's how I write this code again. I think I'm a lot faster. I don't, yeah, I agree. It would be really hard to measure, but in part because I'm working on something like very greenfield right now, and it's just so easy. Like you can just fly through with AI. But it also feels a little bit, I think I saw like a comparison where, coding used to be, building a building and like it would be a lot of like planning and structure and things like that. And now it feels a little bit more like you're, you know, shaping pottery. You get like a rough structure and then you go over it again and you go over it again until you end up with something that you're happy with over time. And so I feel like it's hard to really compare the way that code was built previously to the way that I do it now because like it's just changed so much.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And also, I think great call out. We're working on different things than we were working on a year ago or 2 years ago. And that makes it very hard to compare. Yeah, I think AI makes it feel faster for sure. It feels like there's more code being made because the cost to make it is less. And I feel like the loops, it's tightened like the process almost for me. No longer have to do deep research into things before jumping into a code base because I can have AI kind of tailor a overview for me, and I've learned from that. Or get context elsewhere. So I don't need to go to as many disparate places for that information. And I have it at my fingertips and can collaborate on that, which I think feels interesting. But I do feel like I am making more PRs, but I'm making smaller PRs. They're not as large because it's harder to fit that in a mental model than I was previously. And I spend a lot of time validating that it's correct. So I think sometimes those parts don't feel as fast because before I would have a good mental model of how the code ran and be able to defend it easily or whatnot. But I no longer feel like I really have to do that. Yeah. So I think it's such a good take that you're adding different elements to your process that maybe you weren't doing before because you have time to do it. How do you all feel? I'm curious. Like I had used to spend a lot of time on like worrying about code quality and stuff. I'm curious how you all feel about code quality now. Do you feel like it's as big of an issue as it used to be, or do you think it's a non-issue now?
When you're talking about code quality, are we what are we referring to?
Yeah, like the structure of the code, like the typical, oh, no global variables, no like, make sure a variable is named properly and scoped properly and things like that. That used to be very debatable. I feel like I haven't seen many debates on code on those nuances lately, and that's been really interesting.
So like readability and style kind of. Yeah.
I think it depends. I feel like the things that I cared about before don't matter as much now. Like the readability, I care more about like, oh, can the agent read this and work from it? I don't really care as much if I can read it. If it's, dramatically better and I can mostly understand what it's doing, then ship it. Looks good to me. I do think though that there are some parts of code quality that have definitely improved that I didn't really expect. Like I'm working in a new code base now, and I've just been like going through and looking at the logs now and seeing, just trying to get a feel for how things run in production. And I was talking to somebody else on my team, and they're like, yeah, so I've just been, having getting all the logs and having Claude look through them and just, go fix bugs that it finds based on things that are reported. And so like our logs are crazy clean and there's almost no bugs existing like within the application, or they're just not being reported, I guess. There's nothing really being reported because like you have that extra tool to go through and like continuously refine things and work on like, oh, like this error was occurring, this panic was occurring, like make sure that those get fixed over time. So I think that in ways like that, it used to be really easy to say like, oh, that Sentry error always pops up and I know it's just very noisy and I just ignore it and I don't have time to deal with it now. But like now there is time. There's no real excuse about not having time to deal with it because you can just say like, all right, somebody go take care of this for me. AI, please. So maybe it's gotten better.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like very skeptical because I've had so many experiences where it's like you'll go set it on a bug or something and it either completely misses the mark or it solves the wrong problem, you know? Yeah, I'm just like still so skeptical. Skeptical, I guess, is the best way to phrase it. And like there's just so many little things that can crop up like when you don't have like a human in the loop, or like it's hard to parse through what's going on, you know what I mean? Like, so I do still think that it's really important. I think it's easier to like implement a style guide or something and like kind of adhere to certain principles in agentic coding than it is for like human coding, because you have to like keep it all in your head and reference it. Like I feel like AI is pretty good at just quickly checking if something's within style style guidance. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the number of times that there's been these small little bugs that pop up, and it's like, well, part of it is because the code was so obscure and hard to read that like if I like it's very obvious now that I know what it is, but it's like hidden under these layers of like just kind of slop. So yeah, I I don't think it's in my mind. I don't think it's any less important. Um, no.
I completely agree. I mean, I think you get out what you put in a way. So, like, if you have a code base with already like inconsistent styling or formatting or anything like that, you're probably going to get inconsistencies going forward. And it was really interesting. My team recently finished a large refactor of our code base. To make things a lot like more consistent in terms of the API routes looked pretty similar. We're all very like stackable and you could like mix and match what like pipelines you're fitting to each other. And one of the big reasons we did that at that point was because we knew agentic AI was coming in and going to be a large thing, and the more it went on, the harder our code base would be to maintain and keep consistent. So we like it wasn't just the refactor that was a huge part, but it was also making sure the guidelines were there to tell AI how to implement like our new structure and all that. But there's still times where I threw AI at a problem and it gives me the most confidently wrong answer because of like old decisions we made and bad coding practices in the past. So definitely think it's still important. Also, to understand what code you're pushing out, I think it just needs to be easy to read and understand. Anyways, otherwise it's just easy to throw like a 20,000 line PR at someone and be like, all right, here, review this, which, as we know, goes well every single time that happens.
I mean, yeah, I do feel like there is still that like caveat of like what you're working on too, though. I think depending on the project, depending on the like level of production or whatever, like there are some things where it's kind of fine to not have like as much infrastructure, as much whatever you put into it, tests, I mean, hackathons, spikes, that kind of stuff. It's like do whatever you need to do to get it done. Like I'm not here being like everything must be perfect in order to get out. Like if it works, great. But I think, yeah, like you're kind of doing everyone a disservice, like future you, if it's hard to read and understand, then yeah, I always think like how will this look to me in 6 months, and I'm never a good judge at that, and it's always worse when I look back than I want it to be, but yeah, it's good to at least try.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting too, working on different levels of scale. When I was at GitHub, I was working on the platform, the billing platform, which turns out like bugs there caused significant problems. And, there was millions of people who used it every day. Whereas now I'm on, a much smaller team. We had like 30 people across billing, and now I'm on a team of like 3 to 4 people. And it's a very early stage of a project and not a ton of users yet. And so it's a very different way to build things in general. And so I think I'm a little bit more loose now with like, it works, it does the thing, and we'll refine it over time. Whereas at GitHub scale, that is still really hard to do, still intimidating to make major changes to anything that's serving a lot of people.
I don't know what you all are talking about. Crystalbepis.com, my side project, is functionally perfect. It's top quality slop.
I'm sorry, what is this?
Crystalbepis.com.
I don't know what this is. I haven't heard of it.
Bobby, my husband, for those who don't know, bought a domain called crystalbepis.com. And I decided to vibe code a landing page for it one day and
Oh
deploy
yeah.
it with GitHub Pages, and took 30 minutes.
We need to include that in the show notes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
link in the notes.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I do have a lot more. I do have a lot more ridiculous domain names, I will say, than I did before, because now I'm like, it takes no time to go make this website. And so I have a few that are just like hanging out now that I'm like, I made this thing. It was neat. Nobody's gonna use it, but it exists, and that's pretty fun.
100%. I think the rate that I buy domains is way up. Cloudflare loves me right now, and I squat on them. It's so bad. But yeah, well, maybe that should be a fun segment sometime. Is what domains do you have, and what are you going to do with them? But it really is. I love when I'm like, why isn't there a solution to this problem? It's so easy. Or if I see like a half baked solution, I'm like, I could do this so much better, but then I never do. So people who put that out are already doing better out there. So talking about like slop and stuff, do you all still review PRs the same way or judge like quality in the same way, or has it meaningfully changed? I know you all also are working on like the different projects and stuff, so I would love to know if that's also maybe a part of how things have changed as well.
I don't think that I review as closely as I used to. I think I spend more time reviewing my own PRs than I ever used to before, because I'm like, all right, I have to vouch for this. I'm the one ultimately responsible for whatever this machine has been doing. So like I want to make sure that I'm reading it. But other people's PRs, I have a lot of trust that they're doing the same thing, hopefully. And yeah, we'll find out, I guess, when things break, if they do. Yeah, I think I am also relying a lot. We have an automated code review agent that does that, and I feel like I rely on that a lot more than I probably should. Just not like I'm like missing things necessarily, but I'm like, like the low-hanging fruit stuff that I used to call it, like, like does this name make sense or whatever? Like, oh, you misspelled something in these comments or whatever. Like, those are things that now I just have AI do, because either AI wrote it to begin with, and so there are no typos anymore because apparently it's perfect, and or I'm just like I'm not going to read this closely and like try to make sure I'll make sure that the thing makes sense to me, but I'm not going to be like, hey, like, can you update this typo in this comment or anything like that.
Yeah, Erica, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I once again feel like I'm on like on the other side of the spectrum where I feel like I have less trust in what people are doing. I've seen some stuff come through that I'm like, and like, or I mean, I don't know how common this is, but like I've seen non-engineers put up PRs, which not saying you can't, but like, do you really know what this is doing? Like, are you going to support this in production? Have you thought through the support plan for this? So yeah, um I don't know. I feel like I'm always skeptical of AI code reviews in general, except for like you said, like the low hanging fruit. Like I feel like it's great for that kind of stuff where it's like, ooh, this thing doesn't make sense or whatever. But I also feel like it's a bit of a false sense of security from what I've seen of like there's definitely been times when it says it looks good and then there's like lots like it says it looks good but it's like solving the wrong problem or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think it goes back to like what we were talking about before of like, yeah, like does architecture matter? And the answer is like, yes, definitely yes. Like if you're solving the wrong problem, then, you're not doing anything. Yeah, but I think I think it's also just like upped the feeling of like fire hose where like it feels like there's more PRs to review all the time. So like I feel kind of exhausted by PR reviews and it like takes everything in me to not like ignore them or auto approve them because there's so many coming through. Yeah, but I guess, it's something that I guess that is something that I do sometimes when I have like agents running. Like I'll do a PR review and like I do need to focus for like 15-20 minutes usually, but usually that's a good use of time to unblock somebody else.
I have a take that I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but I have a prediction that eventually we're going to get to a point where we don't have another person review PRs in the future. I think it's going to take a long time to get there, especially because I think there are actually some like regulatory requirements around anybody who has like code that's running with money or something like that, where you have to have another person review it. But I think that's ultimately where we're going to end up. And I think the longer the time goes on, the more okay with it I am. But yeah, then you have to have like a very high level of trust, I think, with the people that you're working with to be like, okay, but you are actually reading this, right? Like you're not just yellowing this in without looking at it. I think when I was at, I had a PM at GitHub that did a really, really great job of like just fixing things herself. Loved her. Holly, you're amazing if you're listening to this. And yeah, I feel like when she would do something, then I would just like treat that as my own PR. Basically, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like check out the code that was written and like make sure I run it just to double check that everything is good because I basically treating it as my own stuff, even though it wasn't necessarily because I knew I was the one that was gonna be responsible for it to speak to that. So
Yeah, that's such a good point about regulations. I especially like the banking industry, of course, like has a lot of those. But also remember in a past job, like I was helping out with SOC 2 compliance, and even though those which most companies do have SOC 2 compliance, did involve like having X number of engineers review code and having this many like production uh, blockers or things like that. So that's a great point. But I think like honestly both angles are valid. I definitely use Copilot a lot more for reviews and stuff. So I used to kind of dismiss whatever it would put, but now I do take it fairly seriously and try to read through, at least if there's comments on a PR I'm reviewing, see if it flagged anything. But I think like my main concern right now is whether the person has like what could go wrong if that PR went. So if it's a fairly small scope, then I'll be a little more like not lenient, but it makes me feel a lot better approving something even if it's like large if it has a small scope of what it could really go wrong, because it does matter being able to test your stuff as much as possible. But I really enjoy, like, I think I mentioned the GitHub app before, the GitHub Copilot app, I think it's called now. But you can kind of basically have a review of a PR in like the app itself and ask it questions. So that helps me stay oriented when I'm reviewing things, and just making sure that like, especially if it's a large PR, keeping organized is really, really tough. But not trying to be an ad, I know I'm biased, but it's genuinely a really helpful tool for me.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. If review a large PR, I'm usually like, it's so hard to stay focused, but it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of tools that I had a lot more access to at GitHub that I don't anymore, and I miss them. So I need to download the GitHub app and try it out. And I really miss Coding Agent. I really miss the GitHub Copilot Coding Agent. I guess it's just called GitHub Copilot, but like just automatically assigning a thing to the agent, and then it would just like make a PR for me. I still haven't figured out how to do that outside of GitHub. Maybe this is how I get us signed up for Copilot.
Yes, one of us.
Yeah.
Again, I do think additionally AI review is very nice for personal projects where you might not have that level of feedback or as much level of feedback as like in your professional development. So you can almost use it as a learning tool for if you're coding in a language you're not aware of or you're less familiar with. You can get more specific feedback on the code you're implementing. I know you both have mentioned learning new things, like in this chat. Do you all tend to reach for AI when you're learning something new, or do you tend to try to avoid that and learn it on your own to really develop those mental models?
And what I'm learning and what time I have and sort of what the stakes are, I still definitely do feel like there's that like productive struggle, and also unplugging to test your own recall and understanding is really important. So like, you know, I can consume everything, but if I can't give it back to you in a consumable format, then I didn't really learn it. So I do always try to take that step of like writing down what it is that I've learned or saying it to somebody else to test whether or not I've actually got it. However I get to that point, like I said, it kind of depends on the situation. But yeah, I do think it's a useful tool for sure, especially in like summarizing or explaining it a different way, or like looking for connections to different things, or just having like a long standing like knowledge base to kind of like ask questions over time. Like, yeah, I was mentioning I'm on this diet. It's like 21-day cleanse, and I uploaded the guidance into Claude so that I could keep asking it questions throughout the 21 days of like, can I eat this? Give me more recipes, like all that kind of stuff that I'm like, even if I'm like, like this is really hard and whatever. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have it, like I said, as a sort of like long-standing reference point.
Yeah, I feel like I use AI tools quite a bit for learning now. I think early on it took me a while to figure out like how to actually learn with it, but now I'm using it quite a bit. Like when I've been doing stuff in Figma, right now I'm trying to learn how to use Figma. I'll just have Claude open next to me and be like, how do I add a variable or something like that in Figma or something. Basically the Google searching I was doing before, but it's just a little bit faster and more tailored to what I'm working on and provides good insights. But I really appreciate the fact that I can like add a bunch of context and ask questions until I feel like I really understand something. Like when somebody comes up with a proposal or something, I can just upload all that context and be like, why did they do it this way? Like, is this the right way to do it? Is this like, do I understand this correctly? Can I word this in my words and like say it back and make sure that it all makes sense? I think if you have to be kind of deliberate with that, because I think it's easy to just be like, oh, I know what this is, and just like keep hitting the enter button and say like, whatever, move on. But now that I'm like, all right, I have to sit here and explicitly make sure that I can say in my own words what this thing is to be able to confirm that I know it. It's a lot easier. I'm going to be starting school later this year. I in like 2 3 months I'm going to be starting at Georgia Tech to learn about artificial intelligence, and I am so excited to see what it is like now to be in school and learning things. And I feel like being a grown up that has had a full-time job is going to be like a huge advantage, because I feel like I hear a lot of people that are in school right now that are like, oh, I didn't learn anything. I just had AI write all my stuff. And I'm like, no, 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 no. This is how you use it to make it actually, like, to verify that you understand a thing. I think it's going to be really interesting to have that experience soon.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear about your experiences there and how that goes. I think it's something that has always personally made me nervous. So I'm interested in hearing like how it goes, how much you learn, and sharing that knowledge back. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I think as with everything, there's a happy medium. I think it really just depends on your curiosity and your in like discipline and not using it as a crutch, but like using it as a tool. And also it also just depends on how much you actually want to learn. Some things aren't don't matter as much, and that's okay than others. But it's like important to invest that time that you want to in learning what you do, and it's going to be hard learning a new thing and being a newbie at something, but yeah, it can be a tool, it can be a crutch, but it all depends on how you use it. All right, well, I think we're coming up to time, so let's get on with our fun segment. So for today's fun segment, we're going to do an atrophy confessional. So I know I've experienced a lot of these moments lately, but I just was hoping to do a little round each on things recently that we used to know by memory that we've reached for AI to do or help us with. I can go first. I don't think I've actually made a PR or myself with like Git commands in a few months now. And I I'm pretty sure I could still do it. I'm not sure though. It's even coming up with a commit message. It's like, no, just let the AI do it. And additionally, I'll throw another one in. Trying to like build a little self-service bot or tag in a self-service bot to help us like answer questions to ease on call burden. And in my test channel, it was just responding really like poorly, like so bad. And I was like, why is it so bad? And then somebody was like, well, what model is it using? And I just didn't even think to check what model it was using. And I asked AI, and it was literally in a config file somewhere that it's using GPT-4. So that explained it.
Do it. Also, I feel like my confessional, as soon as you were like wrote down that this was going to be it, I was like, I have the perfect one. Mine is also like Git related commands. I can't remember. Like right now, I've been using work trees a bunch to like, I don't know how a work tree works. I don't know what's happening under the hood. I don't know how to remove a work tree, but I know it has to be removed to check out the branch. And all of that is done with AI now. I am sure that I could figure it out, but I refuse and just ask AI to check out the branch that I want checked out and make sure everything's ready to go. Same with merge conflicts. I feel like I'm starting to do the same thing with merge conflicts where I'm like, AI can solve it, you know, like especially if they're really hard. Yeah, definitely have atrophied those skills quite a bit. What about you, Erica?
So I feel like one of one of the like production readiness gates I have for myself is like knowing what telemetry to look at, and it's always really hard because at least in the GitHub monolith, like it's a huge monolith and our telemetry is like instrumented different places. It's not always like right where, you are, but some things are like local to the package or whatever. So it's always like a really tricky thing to be like, what are the logs? What are the, Datadog metrics? And like with a Datadog MCP connection or whatever, like, and the code base, like it's a pretty useful way. It doesn't always get 100%, but like I can make a bespoke notebook for whatever I'm rolling out based on the telemetry. And yeah, I honestly hate creating notebooks by hand, so it's not something that I ever do if I can help it. So yeah, that's what I'm sure I still could. I think because I always have to go and like edit stuff, but yeah, I don't I don't do much of the manual process anymore.
I love that. I feel like Datadog is probably one of the companies that's doing well in the AI era because I just never wrote notebooks myself before. Also, because it's like it's so much work, and now it's just like, "Ah, go do it for me. How to make a notebook for this thing I'm going to roll out. Let me see what's going to happen."
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, those are all so great. Yeah, I guess I didn't even realize that Datadog MCP could make a notebook, so maybe that's the next one on my atrophy roundup, but that's awesome. All right. Well, thank y'all for having this chat and letting me learn from you and how you all are learning in this age of AI and stuff. But thank you, listener, so much for tuning into Overcommitted. If you like what you hear, please follow, subscribe, or do whatever it is you like to do on the podcast app of your choice. Check us out on Blue Sky and share with your friends. Until next week, bye.